The human research ship New Dawn moved slowly through the dark space near the edge of the galaxy. Captain Hyunwoo sat in his chair on the bridge, watching the stars. His crew had been out here for 3 months now, studying the strange energy, readings coming from this system. It was quiet work, but important. "Captain," said Heejin from her communication station, "I'm getting something strange on the long-range sensors." Hyunwoo turned to look at her. Heejin was young, maybe 25, but she was good at her job. She spoke several alien languages and could spot trouble before it found them. "What kind of strange?" he asked. "Big ships, moving fast, coming right at us." Taeho looked up from his pilot controls. He was the same age as Heejin, with quick hands and a calm mind. "How big are we talking?" "3 times our size, maybe bigger." Heejin's fingers moved over her controls. "I'm trying to get a better reading, but they're using some kind of technology I don't recognize." Dr. So Young came onto the bridge carrying her medical scanner. She was older than most of the crew, maybe 40, with gray starting to show in her black hair. "Did someone say we have visitors?" "Looks like it," said Hyunwoo. He pressed a button on his chair. "Dongmin, Bora, please come to the bridge." Within minutes, the rest of the crew arrived. Dongmin was the youngest of them all, barely 22, but he could fix anything on the ship. Bora was their security chief, a former soldier with hard eyes and quick reflexes. "Show us what we're dealing with," Hyunwoo said to Heejin. The main screen lit up with images of 3 massive ships. They were dark and sharp, covered in what looked like living armor. Strange lights pulsed along their sides. "Krythac," whispered Bora. "I've seen ships like this before." "Are they friendly?" asked Taeho. Bora shook her head. "The Krythac don't do friendly. They're warriors. They think might makes right." Dr. So Young studied the ships on the screen. "I've read about them. They have a very different culture from ours. Everything is about being strong and proving dominance." "Can we outrun them?" Hyunwoo asked Taeho. "Not a chance. They're already too close and too fast." Heejin looked up from her station. "They're trying to communicate. It's coming through now." A voice filled the bridge, speaking in harsh, clicking sounds. Then Hyejin's translation system kicked in, and they heard the words in Korean. "Small vessel. You will stop your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your destruction." The crew looked at each other. They all knew they didn't have much choice. "Send a reply," Hyunwoo said. "Tell them we comply, but we request peaceful contact." Heejin sent the message. The response came back quickly. "Peace is for the weak. Prepare to be boarded." Dongmin ran his hands through his hair. "Well, this isn't good." "It'll be okay," said Dr. So Young, putting a hand on his shoulder. "We'll figure this out together." Bora was already moving to get their few weapons, but Hyunwoo stopped her. "No, we can't fight 3 warships. We play this smart and hope for the best." 20 minutes later, they felt their ship shake as something attached to their hull. Then came the sound of cutting tools. "They're coming through the cargo bay," reported Taeho, watching his instruments. "Everyone stay calm," said Hyunwoo. "Remember, we're scientists, not warriors. Maybe we can talk our way through this." The sounds got closer. Heavy footsteps echoed through the ship's corridors. Then the bridge doors opened with a crash. The Krythac warriors were huge, nearly 7 feet tall, covered in what looked like living armor that shifted and moved. Their faces were hidden behind masks, but red eyes glowed from behind the eye slits. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. The leader stepped forward. His armor was darker than the others, with more decorations. "I am War Commander Velthar of the Krythac Empire. You are now prisoners of the Empire." Hyunwoo stepped forward, his hands raised peacefully. "I am Captain Hyunwoo. We're just researchers. We mean no harm to anyone." Velthar looked around, the bridge studying each crew member. "Humans. I have heard of your kind. You come from what we call a death world, a planet so harsh that only the very strong survive." "Earth isn't that bad," said Taeho with a small smile. One of the Krythac warriors moved toward him, but Velthar held up a hand to stop the warrior. "You find humor in captivity?" "Interesting." We find humor in lots of things, said Dr. So Young. It helps us deal with difficult situations. Belthar studied her with those glowing red eyes. You are not afraid. We're scared, Bora said honestly. But fear doesn't help anyone. In my experience, said Veltar, fear makes beings honest about their true nature. It shows who is strong and who is weak, who leads and who follows. Hyunwoo looked at his crew. They were all scared, he could see it in their eyes. But they stood together, none of them backing away or trying to hide behind the others. We don't really think that way, he said to Velthar. What do you mean? Strength isn't about being better than someone else, it's about helping each other be better. Velthar tilted his head like he was trying to understand a difficult concept. Explain. Before Hyunwoo could answer, there was a problem. One of the Krythac warriors was examining Taeho's pilot station. He pressed something he shouldn't have, and sparks flew from the control panel. The electrical discharge hit Taeho and knocked him down. What happened next made all the Krythac warriors freeze. Instead of stepping back or establishing who was now in charge, every single human on the bridge moved toward their fallen friend. Dr. So Young dropped to her knees beside Taeho, checking his pulse and breathing. Bora and Hyunwoo placed themselves between Taeho and the Krythac, ready to protect him. Dongmin started working on the damage controls, trying to make sure there wouldn't be another electrical discharge. Heejin knelt down next to Dr. So Young, ready to help however she could. Is he okay? Asked Hyunwoo, not taking his eyes off the Krythac. Just stunned, said Dr. So Young, helping Taeho sit up. He'll be fine. I'm okay, Taeho said weakly, but he was smiling. Thanks, everyone. Velthar watched all of this with growing confusion. In Krythac society, when someone was injured, they were either left behind or put out of their misery. The strong didn't risk themselves for the weak. It was a waste of resources and energy. But these humans, they had all moved to help without thinking. No one had tried to take advantage of the situation to gain power. No one had stepped back to avoid association with weakness. This is unusual, Velthar said to his warriors. The other Krythac nodded, clearly disturbed by what they had seen. Why did you all risk yourselves for one injured individual? Velthar asked. The humans looked at each other like the question didn't make sense. Because he's our friend, said Hyejin simply. Friend. Velthar repeated the word like it was foreign to him. What does this mean? It means we care about each other, explained Dr. So Young. We look out for each other. We help each other. Even when it puts you at risk? Especially then, said Bora. Velthar stared at them for a long moment. Then he spoke to his warriors in their own language. They responded with confused clicking sounds. You will come with us, he finally said. My superiors will want to study this behavior. As the Krythac led them off their ship, Hyunwoo helped Taeho walk. The other crew members stayed close, making sure their friend was okay. Velthar watched them carefully. He had come here expecting to capture some simple Deathworlders. Instead, he had found something that challenged everything he thought he knew about strength and survival. What were these creatures called? Friends. And why did the thought of them make him feel something he had never felt before? Fear. The holding cells on the Krythac warship were cold and dark. Each cell was just big enough for one person to lie down, with thick metal walls and a small slot for food. The Krythac had put each human in a separate cell, thinking this would break their spirits. They were wrong. Captain Hyunwoo was in the first cell. He pressed his ear to the wall and tapped gently. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap. From the next cell, he heard Bora tap back. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap. It was an old code they had learned during their military training. Simple but effective. Everyone okay? Hyunwoo tapped out. Fine, came Bora's response. Then she passed the message along to the next cell. Soon, all 6 humans were talking to each other through the walls. The Krythac guards didn't understand what the tapping meant, so they let it continue. Dr. So Young was worried about Tae-ho. "Still feeling weak?" she tapped. "Better now," Tae-ho replied. "Don't worry about me." But she did worry. They all did. That's what friends do. Sub-Commander Krythac walked through the prison area, studying the human prisoners. He was Velthar's second-in-command, and he prided himself on understanding enemy behavior. "Report," said Velthar when Krythac returned to the bridge. "The humans are strange, Commander. We separated them as standard procedure, expecting them to become depressed or angry. Instead, they have found a way to communicate through the walls." "What do they talk about?" "They check on each other's health and comfort. They share information about the guards' schedules. They discuss escape plans, but not individual escape. They want to escape together or not at all." Velthar's eyes glowed brighter behind his mask. "This matches what we saw on their ship. They act as a group, not as individuals." "It gets stranger, Commander. Watch this." Krythac led Velthar to the prison area. They watched through the security monitors as the guards brought food to the cells. Each prisoner got a small bowl of nutrition paste and a cup of water, but the humans didn't eat right away. Hyunwoo examined his food carefully, then called out to the others. "The paste looks okay, but the water has a strange smell." "Mine too," reported Dr. So Young. "It might be drugged." They discussed this problem for several minutes, comparing what they had received. Finally, Dongmin volunteered to try his water first. "If it's drugged, I'm the youngest. I can probably handle it better than the rest of you." "Absolutely not," came Bora's firm voice from her cell. "I'm the security officer. Testing dangerous substances is my job." "Actually," interrupted Dr. So Young, "as the medical officer, I should be the one to test it. I'm the best qualified to recognize the effects." An argument started, but it wasn't the kind of argument that Krythac understood. Each human was trying to convince the others to let them take the risk. They were fighting for the right to protect their friends. Velthar and Krythac watched in amazement as this continued. "In the end," Krythac reported, "they decided to all drink small amounts at the same time so they could monitor each other for reactions." "And the food?" "They discovered that some got more food than others. Instead of keeping what they had, they began passing portions through the gaps in their cells to make sure everyone had equal amounts." Velthar was quiet for a long moment. "This behavior serves no logical purpose. The weak should be grateful for whatever they receive. The strong should keep what is theirs." "That's what we thought too, Commander. But these humans seem to operate under different rules." 3 days passed. The Krythac expected the humans to start showing signs of despair or to begin turning on each other. Instead, their strange behavior continued. Hyejin had somehow memorized the guards' schedules and was sharing this information with the others. Dongmin was studying the cell locks, trying to figure out how to open them. Tae-ho was mapping the ship's layout based on the sounds he heard and the movement he felt. But it was what they did for each other that truly confused their captors. When Bora caught a fever from the poor conditions, the others stayed awake all night talking to her through the walls to keep her spirits up. They told her stories, shared memories, and made jokes to distract her from feeling sick. When Dongmin had a panic attack from being enclosed in such a small space, Dr. So Young talked him through breathing exercises, while the others reassured him that they were all there with him. When Tae-ho had nightmares about the electrical shock, Hyunwoo and Hyejin took turns staying awake to talk with him whenever he woke up scared. "They're making themselves weaker," Krythac reported to Velthar. "They lose sleep to comfort each other. They give away food to make sure the others are fed. They exhaust themselves helping with each other's problems." "But do they seem weaker?" asked Velthar. Krythac thought about this. "No, Commander. If anything, they seem stronger, more determined, more unified." This was the part that frightened Velthar. He had captured 6 individuals, but somehow they acted like parts of a single organism. Hurt one and the others felt it. Threaten one, and the others became dangerous. He decided to test this theory. "Bring the security officer to the interrogation room," he ordered. Bora was still weak from her fever, but she walked into the interrogation room with her head held high. The Krythac had strapped her to a chair designed to cause pain. "You will tell me about human military capabilities," Velthar commanded. "I'll tell you my name, rank, and serial number," Bora replied. "That's all." Velthar activated the chair. Energy coursed through Bora's body, making her muscles lock up in pain. She gritted her teeth but didn't scream. "Your friends cannot help you here," Velthar said. "Save yourself, give me the information." Bora looked at him with defiant eyes. "They're not just friends, they're family, and family doesn't betray family." Velthar increased the power. This time, Bora did scream, but she didn't break. From the prison area came the sound of the other humans frantically trying to break out of their cells. They were calling Bora's name, shouting encouragement, making as much noise as possible. "Let her go," Hyunwoo's voice echoed through the ship. "I'm the captain. I have the information you want." "Take me instead," called Dr. So-young. "I know more about human biology than she does." The voices of all 5 remaining humans mixed together, each offering to take Bora's place, each trying to save their friend from pain. Velthar stopped the torture and stared at Bora. "Why don't they abandon you? You are weak now. You are a liability." Bora smiled through her pain. "Because that's not how humans work. We don't leave people behind. But it would be logical, practical. Logic isn't everything, Commander. Sometimes the heart knows things the mind doesn't understand." Velthar returned Bora to her cell. As soon as she was back, the others began, checking on her through the walls, making sure she was okay, apologizing that they couldn't protect her. "I'm fine," Bora assured them. It wasn't that bad. But Dr. So-young could tell from Bora's voice that she was lying to keep them from worrying. "Bora," she said gently, "you don't have to be strong for us. We're here for you." That's when Bora finally broke down and cried. Not from the pain, but from the relief of knowing her friends cared about her. Krythac found Velthar in his command chamber, staring out at the stars. "Commander, the humans continue to behave in ways we cannot predict or understand." "I know," said Velthar quietly. "What are your orders?" Velthar was silent for a long time. Finally he spoke. "Double the guard around their cells in Krythac?" "Yes, Commander." "Begin studying everything we know about human culture. I have the feeling we're dealing with something far more dangerous than we realized." "Dangerous, Commander?" "They're just 6 individuals with primitive technology." Velthar turned to look at his second-in-command. "No, Krythac. They're not 6 individuals. They're something else entirely. Something we don't have in our society." "What do you mean?" "They called it friendship. But what I'm seeing, it's like they share a single soul spread across 6 bodies. Attack one, and you attack them all. Strengthen one, and you strengthen them all." Krythac considered this. "How does one fight such a thing?" "I don't know," Velthar admitted. "And that terrifies me." In their cells, the humans continued their quiet conversations through the walls. They planned, they comforted, they shared their fears and hopes. They were prisoners, but they weren't alone. And somehow that made all the difference. Dongmin had been working on the lock of his cell for 3 days. He used a piece of metal from his food tray, slowly wearing down the locking mechanism. His fingers were cut and bleeding, but he didn't stop. "Almost got it," he whispered to the wall, where Hyunwoo could hear him. "Be careful," came the captain's reply. "Don't hurt yourself." "Too late for that," Dongmin said with a small laugh. "But it's working." The lock finally clicked open. Dongmin slowly pushed his cell door open, listening for guards. The corridor was empty. Most of the Krythac were sleeping during their night cycle. He could have run. The escape pods were only 2 levels up. But instead, Dongmin immediately went to work on the other cells. Bora's lock was next. She was still weak from the torture, but she insisted on helping. "You should rest," Dongmin whispered as he worked on Taiho's cell. "I'm fine," Bora said. It was becoming her favorite lie. Soon all 6 humans were free. They stood in the dim corridor, listening to the quiet sounds of the sleeping ship. "The escape pods are this way," Taiho whispered, pointing toward the nearest stairway. But Hyunwoo shook his head. We're not leaving yet. What do you mean? Asked Hyejin. There are other prisoners on this ship. I heard the guards talking about them when they brought me food. Dr. So Young nodded. I heard it too, different species. They've been here longer than us. Bora looked at her captain with tired eyes. Sir, we barely got ourselves out. If we try to rescue others, we might not make it at all. She's right, said Dongmin. Every minute we stay here increases the chance we'll be caught. Hyunwoo looked at his crew. They were scared. They were hurt. They wanted to go home. But he knew them well enough to know what they would choose. I can't leave knowing there are others suffering down here, he said quietly. But I won't order you to come with me. This is your choice. The humans looked at each other. They had a silent conversation with their eyes, the kind that only comes from years of working together. Well, said Taeho with a grin, where else are we going to go? Let's find these other prisoners, said Dr. So Young. The prison area was larger than they had thought. The human cells were in just one small section. As they moved deeper into the ship, they found dozens of other cells holding different alien species. There were blue-skinned Altarians, tiny Zephyrite, and several species they didn't recognize. Most of the prisoners looked sick and weak. How? Do we free them all? Whispered Hyejin. Dongmin was already studying the central control panel. Give me 5 minutes. While he worked, the others kept watch. Bora and Hyunwoo covered the corridor. Dr. So Young and Hyejin began talking quietly to the other prisoners, explaining what was happening. Taeho worked on memorizing the route back to the escape pods. Got it, Dongmin whispered. All the cell doors opened at once. The freed prisoners stumbled out of their cells, confused and afraid. Many had been captives for months or even years. Follow us, Hyunwoo told them in the universal trade language. We're getting out of here. But leading dozens of weak, scared aliens through a hostile ship was not easy. They moved slowly, and several of the prisoners collapsed from exhaustion. We're not going to make it, Taeho said quietly. There are too many of them, and they're too weak to move fast. That's when they heard footsteps. Heavy, armored footsteps. The Krythac had discovered the escape. Go, Dr. So Young told the others. Take the healthy ones and run. I'll stay with the injured. No, said Bora immediately. We all go together or we don't go at all. That's not practical, said one of the Altarian prisoners. She's right. Leave the weak behind so the strong can survive. The humans stared at the alien like he had said something horrible. We don't leave people behind, Hyunwoo said firmly. That's not who we are. The Krythac were getting closer. They could hear Velthar's voice echoing through the corridors, ordering his warriors to find the escaped prisoners. This way, said Dongmin, leading them toward the engineering section instead of the escape pods. I have an idea. The engineering deck was full of humming machinery and glowing conduits. Dongmin immediately went to work on one of the control panels. What are you doing? Asked Hyejin. Overloading the power grid, Dongmin replied, his hands flying over the alien controls. It'll create enough chaos to cover our escape. But something went wrong. Sparks flew from the panel and an explosion knocked Dongmin backwards. The blast also injured a Krythac engineer who had been working nearby. The Krythac engineer, Zephyr, was badly hurt. His armor was cracked and blue blood leaked from his wounds. He looked up at the humans with pain-filled eyes, expecting them to finish him off or leave him to die. Instead, Dr. So Young immediately knelt beside him and began examining his injuries. What are you doing? Zephyr asked weakly. You're hurt, Dr. So Young said simply, applying pressure to his wounds. Hold still. But I am your enemy. Right now, you're a patient. The other humans formed a protective circle around Dr. So Young while she worked. Even though they were in the middle of an escape, even though Krythac warriors were hunting them, they stopped to help an injured enemy. Zephyr couldn't understand it. In Krythac culture, enemies were killed, not healed. The injured were abandoned, not protected. Why? He whispered. Taeho looked down at him with kind eyes. Because it's the right thing to do. But I would not do the same for you. That's okay, said Dr. So Young, still working on his wounds. We don't do good things because we expect them back. We do them because they need to be done. The sound of approaching footsteps got louder. Velthar and his warriors were almost there. We have to go, said Bora urgently. Dr. So Young looked at Zephyr's injuries. He was stable now, but still badly hurt. I can't leave him like this. You must, said Zephyr. Save yourselves, I am already dead. No one is dead until they're dead, said Dr. So Young firmly. Dongmin, Taeho, help me lift him. Are you crazy? Asked one of the other escaped prisoners. He's a Krythac. They're our captors. He's hurt, said Hyunwoo. That's all that matters right now. They lifted Zephyr carefully and continued toward the escape pods. He was heavy, and carrying him slowed them down even more. But not one of the humans suggested leaving him behind. As they moved through the ship, other Krythac warriors found them. But something strange happened when the warriors saw Zephyr being carried by the humans. They hesitated. In all their culture, they had never seen enemies care for wounded Krythac. They didn't know how to respond to it. Do not help them, Zephyr called out to his fellow warriors. They are escaping. But his voice was weak, and there was something else in it. Confusion, wonder, maybe even gratitude. The Krythac warriors looked at each other uncertainly. Their training told them to attack. But seeing their wounded comrade being cared for by the enemy created a doubt they had never felt before. That moment of hesitation was all the humans needed. This way, called Taeho, leading the group down a side corridor. Behind them, they could hear Velthar's angry voice as he arrived at the engineering deck. Why did you not stop them? He demanded of his warriors. The warriors looked at their feet, unable to explain the strange feeling that had stopped them from fighting. The escape pods were finally in sight, but there was a problem. There were only 6 pods, and they had dozens of prisoners with them. The pods can hold 2 people each if we squeeze, said Taeho, examining the controls. That's not enough, said Hyejin, counting the prisoners. The other aliens began to push toward the pods, each trying to save themselves. But the humans stepped back. The others go first, said Hyunwoo. We'll find another way. That's stupid, said one of the Altarians. You freed us. You should get the first pods. We freed you so you could go home, said Bora. That's the whole point. Dr. So Young was still supporting Zephyr. What about him? She asked. He's too injured to survive in a pod alone. I will stay, said Zephyr quietly. I cannot ask you to sacrifice yourselves for me. You're not asking, said Dr. So Young. I'm deciding. Taeho, you're the smallest. You go with him and make sure he gets medical attention. I'm not leaving. Without all of you, Taeho said firmly. That's when Velthar and his warriors finally caught up with them. The war commander stood in the doorway of the escape pod bay, looking at the strange scene before him. Dozens of freed prisoners were climbing into escape pods, while the humans who had freed them were standing back, making sure everyone else got out safely. And in the middle of it all, his own injured engineer was being supported by a human doctor, who should have left him to die. This is impossible, Velthar said quietly. Kreleth appeared beside him. Commander, should we attack? Velthar watched as Dr. So Young gently helped Zephyr into an escape pod, then turned to face the Krythac. Warriors with calm eyes. We're not going to run, she said, but please let the others go. They've suffered enough. You could escape, said Velthar, genuinely confused. The pods are right there. Why do you not take them? Hyunwoo stepped forward. Because our friends are still here. Velthar looked around. All 6 humans were still in the bay. Not one had tried to escape without the others. You are all fools, he said. Maybe, said Hyunwoo with a small smile. But we're fools together. For the first time in his life, War Commander Velthar encountered something his warrior training had not prepared him for. The main hangar bay of the Krythac warship was huge and cold. Velthar had ordered his warriors to bring all the humans here. There were no escape pods in this section, no way out except through dozens of armed Krythac. The 6 humans stood in. The center of the bay, surrounded by War Commander Velthar and his elite guard. These were the strongest Krythac warriors, each one capable of defeating multiple enemies in combat. Velthar walked slowly around the humans, studying them. They were tired, hurt, and far from home. They had no weapons, no armor, and no hope of winning a fight. "You have caused me considerable trouble," Velthar said. "You freed dozens of valuable prisoners. You damaged my ship. You injured my engineer." "We also helped your engineer," Dr. So-Young pointed out. "Is he okay?" Velthar stopped walking. "You are about to die and you ask about the health of your enemy?" "He was hurt. I'm a doctor. It's what I do." "Even for those who would kill you?" "Especially for those who would kill me. Maybe then they'll understand that we're not so different." Krythac stepped closer to his commander. "Sir, the engineer Zephyr is recovering. He has been asking strange questions about the humans." "What kind of questions?" "He wants to know why they helped him. Our medical staff cannot give him a satisfactory answer." Velthar continued his slow circle around the humans. "I brought you here because I want to understand something. Your behavior defies everything we know about survival and warfare." Hyun-woo looked around at his crew. They were all scared, but they stood close together, drawing strength from each other. "What do you want to know?" he asked. "When faced with death, all species show their true nature. The weak beg for mercy. The strong try to bargain for their lives. Leaders offer to sacrifice their followers to save themselves." Velthar stopped in front of Hyun-woo. "Which will you choose?" "None of those," said Hyun-woo quietly. "Then what?" "We'll face whatever comes together." Velthar's red eyes glowed brighter. "Together. This word again. What does it mean to you?" Bora spoke up, her voice still hoarse from the earlier torture. "It means we share everything. Good times and bad times. Safety and danger." "Even death?" asked Velthar. "If that's what comes," said Taiho. "We've lived together. We can die together." "But you could live separately," Krythac interrupted. "We could let one or two of you go. Would you not want that chance?" The humans looked at each other. For a moment, hope flickered in their eyes. The chance to go home, to see their families again, to live. Then Dongmin shook his head. "Not without everyone." "That makes no logical sense," said Velthar. "Some survival is better than no survival. Maybe for you," said Heejin, "but we're not you." Velthar gestured to his warriors. "Very well. Let me make this more interesting. I will give you one escape pod. It can hold 2 people, maybe 3 if they squeeze together. You must choose who gets to live." The humans stared at him. "This is your final test," Velthar continued. "Now we will see your true nature. Who among you is truly strong? Who deserves to survive?" What happened next made every Krythac warrior in the bay step back in confusion. The humans didn't fight over the escape pod. They didn't argue about who was most important or most deserving. Instead, they started fighting about who should stay behind. "I'm the captain," Hyun-woo said firmly. "It's my responsibility to make sure my crew gets home safely. I stay." "Absolutely not," Bora shot back. "I'm security. Protecting people is literally my job." "I stay." Dr. So-Young pushed between them. "You're both being ridiculous. I'm the oldest. I've had a full life. I should be the one to stay." "That's crazy," said Dongmin. "You're the doctor. You save lives. The universe needs you more than it needs me. I'll stay." Taeho grabbed Dongmin's arm. "You're the youngest. You have your whole life ahead of you. I'm staying, and that's final." "None of you are staying." Hyjin shouted. "I'm the communications officer. I'm not essential for survival. I'll stay behind and you all go." The argument got more heated. Each human desperately tried to convince the others to save themselves. They were literally fighting for the right to die. Velthar and his warriors watched this in growing horror. "Commander," Krythac whispered, "this is not natural. This is not how any species behaves." "I know," Velthar replied quietly. "Stop," Hyun-woo finally shouted. "This isn't working. We need to think logically." "Okay," said Bora. Logically, the captain should survive to report what happened here. Logically, Dr. So Young countered, the youngest should survive because they have the most life left to live. Logically, said Taeho, the most skilled should survive to help humanity prepare for future encounters with the Krythac. Logically, Dongmin interrupted, the person with the most dependents at home should be saved. They started sharing personal information, trying to prove who had the least reason to live. Hyunwoo talked about how his parents were already dead, so fewer people would miss him. Bora mentioned that she had never married or had children. Dr. So Young explained that her research could be completed by others. Each revelation was meant to prove they should be the one left behind. But to their friends, each revelation was another reason why they deserved to be saved. You never told us your parents were dead, Ye-jin said to Hyunwoo with tears in her eyes. That means you need us even more. Bora, you've spent your whole life protecting others, said Taeho. You deserve to have someone protect you for once. The argument continued, but it was unlike any argument the Krythac had ever heard. It was 6 people desperately trying to convince their friends to abandon them. I cannot watch this, said one of the Krythac warriors, backing toward the exit. Stand your ground, Velthar ordered, but his own voice was shaken. Krythac leaned closer to his commander. Sir, what do we do? How do we proceed? Our psychological warfare is completely ineffective. I don't know, Velthar admitted. The humans were still arguing when Dongmin suddenly had an idea. Wait, he said. What if we work together to improve the escape pod? I might be able to modify it to hold all 6 of us. The risk is too high, said Dr. So Young. If you fail, we all die instead of some of us living. But if I succeed, we all live. The odds are against it, Bora pointed out. Since when do we care about odds? Taeho asked with a grin. Hyunwoo looked around at his crew. Are we really going to try this? Risk everyone for a long shot at saving everyone? Of course we are, said Hyejin. We're friends. Velthar stepped forward. No, this cannot happen. I will not allow you to all escape. Then we'll all stay, said Hyunwoo. Simply, that is death, that's our choice, but some of you could live. Dr. So Young looked at Velthar with sad eyes. Commander, you don't understand. Without each other, we wouldn't really be living anyway. What does that mean? It means, said Bora, that losing any of them would be like losing part of myself. We're not just individuals who work together. We're more than that. You are pack animals, Velthar said, trying to understand. Like the hunting beasts on my homeworld. No, said Taeho. Pack animals work together for survival. We work together because we love each other. Love, Velthar repeated. Another word we do not have. Hyejin tried to explain. Love is when someone else's happiness becomes more important than your own. When their pain hurts you more than your own pain. When you would rather die than live without them. That is weakness, said Krythac. Is it? Asked Dongmin. Because right now any one of us would fight all of you to protect the others. Does that seem weak to you? Velthar looked around at his elite warriors. They were the strongest, most ruthless fighters in the Krythac Empire. Each one was trained from birth to be a perfect killer. But as he watched them, he saw something that chilled him to his core. Fear. His warriors were afraid of 6 unarmed humans who refused to abandon each other. Commander, Krythac said urgently, we need to make a decision. If word of this spreads through the Empire. I know, said Velthar. He looked at the humans one more time. They had stopped arguing and were now holding hands, facing whatever came next together. What are you? He asked them. We're friends, Hyunwoo said simply. And in that moment, War Commander Velthar of the Krythac Empire realized that his people had encountered something far more dangerous than any weapon. They had encountered something they could never defeat, because they could never understand it. They had encountered love. The alert sirens on the Krythac warship screamed through the corridors. On the bridge, warriors scrambled to their positions as new contacts appeared on their sensors. Commander, called the sensor operator. Human fleet incoming. 12 ships. Military configuration. Velthar stared at the tactical display. The human ships were smaller than his warship, but there were many of them, and they were moving in perfect formation. How did they find us? Asked Krythac. The communication officer, Velthar realized. Before we captured them, she must have sent a distress signal. The lead human ship opened communications. A stern voice spoke in accented Korean, then switched to the universal trade language. Krythac vessel, this is Admiral Park of the Human Defense Force. We know you have our people. Release them immediately. Velthar looked down at the 6 humans still standing in his hangar bay. They had heard the announcement too, and their faces lit up with hope. But they still didn't let go of each other's hands. Your rescue has arrived, Velthar said to them. Thank you, said Captain Hyunwoo. Will you let us go? Velthar was quiet for a long moment. Part of him wanted to keep studying these strange creatures. Part of him wanted to destroy them before their incomprehensible behavior could spread to his own warriors. But mostly, he just wanted them gone. Yes, he said finally. You may go. The human smiled and started walking toward the hangar's exit. But then Dr. So Young stopped. What about Zephyr? She asked. What about him? Is he getting proper medical care? His injuries were serious. Velthar stared at her. You are moments away from freedom, and you ask about the health of your captor? I'm a doctor, she said simply. It doesn't matter whose side he's on. He is fine, Velthar said, though he wasn't sure why he bothered to answer. Good, said Dr. So Young, and she smiled. As the humans left his ship, Velthar felt something he had never experienced before. He almost didn't want them to go. 2 hours later, Velthar sat in his private chamber, trying to write his report to the High Command. The words would not come. How could he explain what he had seen? How could he describe behavior that made no sense according to everything the Krythac understood about life and survival? He started over for the 10th time. Report on encounter with human Deathworlders, he began. Initial contact proceeded as expected. 6 individuals captured without significant resistance. However, subsequent observation revealed... He stopped. Revealed what? That they cared about each other? That they were willing to die for their friends? That they showed kindness to their enemies? These were not military capabilities. These were not tactical advantages. These were something else entirely. Velthar deleted the report and started again. Recommendation: avoid future contact with human vessels. But that didn't seem right either. The High Command would want to know why. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry. Velthar granted permission and Zephyr entered. The engineer was still bandaged from his injuries, but he was walking under his own power. Commander, Zephyr said, I wanted to thank you for allowing the human doctor to treat me. It was not my decision. She acted without permission. I know, that is what I do not understand. Zephyr sat down carefully, favoring his injured side. Commander, why did she help me? I was her enemy. In her position, I would have left me to die. I have been asking myself the same question, Velthar admitted. I have been thinking about it constantly since they left. The human said that helping enemies might make them understand that we are not so different. But I do not understand what she meant. Velthar looked at his injured engineer. What do you think she meant? Perhaps she was saying that the capacity for suffering is the same, regardless of which species you belong to. Pain is pain. Fear is fear. And if pain is universal, perhaps compassion should be universal too. Velthar felt a strange sensation in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it as discomfort. That is not how the Krythac way works, he said. No, Commander. But maybe that is why we are always at war, and they seem to be at peace with each other. After Zephyr left, Velthar tried once more to write his report. But every time he began, he remembered the image of the humans arguing over who should sacrifice themselves for their friends. Finally, he wrote a single line. Human capabilities require further study. He sent the report and hoped no one would ask for details. Meanwhile, on the human research station, life had returned to normal. The crew of the New Dawn was back at their work, studying the strange energy readings in the outer system. Captain Hyunwoo sat in his chair on the bridge, watching his crew work. They talked and laughed with each other as they always had. The encounter with the Krythac seemed like a distant memory, but it wasn't distant for everyone. Dr. So-young was in her medical bay, updating her files on Krythac physiology. She had learned a lot about their biology while treating Zephyr, and she wanted to make sure the information was available if other humans encountered injured Krythac in the future. Dong-min was in engineering, improving their distress beacon system. Next time someone captures us, he told Taeho, I want to make sure help finds us even faster. Bora was reviewing their security procedures, looking for ways to better protect the crew during first contact situations. Taeho was plotting new navigation routes that would avoid known Krythac patrol areas. Hae-jin was studying Krythac language, patterns trying to improve the translation protocols. Each of them was working to protect their friends in their own way. It was so natural to them that they didn't even think about it. Admiral Park visited the station a week later. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She sat in the station's briefing room with the crew of the New Dawn. Your report was interesting, she said. In what way? Asked Hyunwoo. You described the Krythac as confused by your behavior, but reading your report, I'm not sure I understand your behavior either. Dr. So-young looked puzzled. What do you mean? You risked your lives to rescue prisoners from species you had never met. You provided medical care to an enemy who had injured one of you. You refused to escape when it meant leaving your crewmates behind. Admiral Park leaned forward. Why? The crew looked at each other like the question was strange. Because it was the right thing to do, said Bora. Even when it put you in more danger. Especially then, said Taeho. Admiral Park studied their faces. And you all felt this way? Of course, said Hae-jin. We're friends. Friends, Admiral Park repeated thoughtfully. The Krythac don't have this concept? Apparently not, said Dong-min. They seem to think we were either crazy or under some kind of mind control. Maybe we are crazy, said Taeho with a laugh. But if this is crazy, I like it better than their version of sane. Admiral Park was quiet for a long moment. Do you realize what you've done? She finally asked. Survived, suggested Hyunwoo. More than that, you've shown a major galactic power, that humans have something they don't understand and can't fight against. That makes us either very dangerous or very valuable to them. Which do you think we are? Asked Dr. So-young. I think we're about to find out. 3 months later, Velthar received new orders from the High Command. He was to make contact with human vessels and observe their behavior, not to capture or study them as enemies, but to try to understand what the High Command called the friendship phenomenon. Apparently, other Krythac commanders had reported similar encounters with humans, always the same pattern. Humans who acted as a group rather than individuals, who protected each other even at the cost of tactical advantage, who showed mercy to enemies. Some in the High Command thought it was a weakness to exploit. Others thought it was a strength to fear. A few, like the Supreme War Leader himself, thought it might be something to learn from. Velthar's new mission was to find out which was correct. As his ship moved toward human space, he thought about the 6 humans he had captured and released. He remembered their faces when they argued about who should sacrifice themselves for the others. He remembered Dr. So-young treating Zephyr's wounds. He remembered their relief when they heard their rescue fleet arriving, not for their own safety, but because it meant their friends would also be safe. For the first time in his career as a warrior, Velthar was going into battle against an enemy he didn't want to defeat, because somewhere in his warrior's heart, a small voice was whispering a dangerous question. What would it be like to have friends? Back on the human research station, the ID crew of the New Dawn continued their work. They didn't know they had started something that would eventually change the galaxy. They were just being themselves. They were just being friends. And sometimes, being friends is the most powerful force in the universe.